this is episode 36. So for those of you who have been following me, you've probably been wondering where have I been and what's been going on. And for any of you new viewers, this is a podcast that's primarily about knitting, but also I delve into a little bit of my life living on a small island, Block Island, off the southern coast of Rhode Island in the United States. And sometimes we talk about books and a little maybe about recipes or whatever's going on, but primarily it's knitting. And this particular episode, we're going to do all of that, but also at the end of the episode, for any of you who knew my Uncle Kenny or are interested in seeing some photos of him, I will do a tribute to him, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So just to get started, I want to wish everybody a happy April, a happy spring. Wherever you live in the world, I hope that you're experiencing that renewal, rebirth, some restoration, maybe a little self-pampering, some spring cleaning, tidying up in your homes, tidying up your gardens, going through your wardrobe. Now, for those of us in the Northeast, and especially those in New England and us living on Block Island, we've had very stormy weather these last few days, but we can see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. The temperatures are warming up. We are expecting some sunshine this weekend. So just again, happy spring, happy April. So some of the things that have been going on with me. So it's been bittersweet. It has been, the juxtaposition of life, right? We have to have sometimes a little bitter to really appreciate the sweet in our lives. And the sweet really started off over the winter. I think the last time we were together was in January, and it was after New Year's, and we were, just going to take a little time for ourselves. And also my birthday is in February. Valentine's Day is in February. It's one of my favorite holidays, and we were able to do a little vacation. We went to the U.S. Virgin Islands. I hope I'm inserting some photos of some of that beautiful scenery. My love of aqua and blue and teal and green was only heightened after spending some time in the Virgin Islands. And this year, I think it was because they had quite a bit of rain themselves and a mild summer, there were so many more beautiful flowers than I think we've ever seen. The bougainvillea was this gorgeous raspberry and bright pink. We had hummingbirds and this little yellow bird called the banana quit. And the palm trees were full and the coconuts were full. And you all know a couple of years back, that area was hit with back-to-back hurricanes. So the vegetation is so full. The reef has rebuilt. We saw all the wonderful turtles when we were snorkeling and eagle rays, and it was just fantastic. It was a really wonderful time for us. Some of our best friends also stay in the area, so we had some meals with them and just enjoyed that downtime. And we did also come back, and in the end of March, we had an early, as you all know, Easter was really early this year, those of you who celebrate Easter. So we had my mom and my sister-in-law come out to the island, and we had a wonderful Easter. And my mom just really was delightful as usual, but I hadn't seen her all winter. And sometimes I forget just how funny my mom is. And we had some great laughs, and I'm showing you some photos of that little bunny that I knitted, and I think I showed that to you last April, and I'll include in the show notes who the designer was and some of the other photos of bunnies that I have done over the years. And we had a wonderful carrot cake my sister-in-law baked together, and we picked some daffodils in the garden and decorated the cake. We had a pizza party one night, we went out to dinner one night, and then we had a ham dinner with a wonderful spinach recipe that I'll include as well. It was a phyllo dough spinach pie, and that was delicious. So it was all really wonderful. In February, we lost my beautiful uncle, and those of you who know my Uncle Kenny, and those of you who have seen throughout my episodes, I've referred to him, I've shown some pictures of him. I visited him quite often in February. So we lost my uncle in February, so that was the bitter. Okay, and like I said, I will include a photo tribute to my uncle at the end of this episode. So, okay, what am I wearing? Let's get to the knitting. This is the Chauncey Pullover. I did feature this in a previous episode. Again, I will put that in the show notes. This is an Isabelle Kramer design. I love this sweater, especially this time of year. So this is fingering weight yarn. It's actually Debbie Bliss. It's a Donegal Tweed. This is a top-down design, so if you love yoke work, I think you'll really enjoy this because it's just the two colors. It's the main body color, and then it's one other color. Now I have thought about making this again and maybe using a variegated yarn, so that could be some fun too. And I added this little extra row where I did a knit one in the main color and a knit one in that teal. So this is like a perfect sweater to wear. It's 40 degrees out today. It's windy, it's gray, and that little bit of teal kind of brightens up this gray, and it's very comfortable. So I do recommend this. I do recommend Isabelle Kramer's designs. The simplicity and yet this, the beauty of her designs kind of fit well with things that I want to work on. Okay, so I usually have a finished product on the mannequin or a finished sweater, but with all that went on with going away and then with coming back from my uncle and then Easter being so early, I really haven't done that much knitting. But when I left you in January, I was about to wind some yarn that I had purchased, and this is the Knitting for Olive mohair in this gorgeous color. This is Dusty Aqua. It's a soft silk mohair. It's 70% mohair and 30% silk. And I got this at my local yarn shop, the Mermaid's Pearl, which is in Wakefield, Rhode Island. And she, at the time, was not carrying their merino, the Knitting for Olive merino yarn. And so I did pick up this Moondrake yarn, which is a fingering weight. It is 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon. And this color is Blue Sage. And I just loved these two colors together. And what prompted me to buy this yarn was the Fruity Knitting episode, not this last one, but I think it might have been 1 or 2 episodes ago, where Andrea and her daughter Madeline interviewed the mother and daughter makers behind the Knitting for Olive company. And they talked about this pattern right here, which is the Fern pattern. And so I took this yarn with me. I wound some of the yarn. I took this yarn with me when we went away and started it. So I'm going to take it off the mannequin in a second, but I just wanted you to see this beautiful design. It's top down. It has a couple of inches up at the neck. You could probably modify this, make it shorter, make it longer, whatever works for you. I tried this on and I decided I liked that. It is a gorgeous pattern. It looks a little complicated, but it's not. It's just basically a yarn over, and then it's also a decrease. So you're doing an SSK and you're doing a knit 2 together. And that's creating this little eyelet look. And to make up for those 2 stitches, you are doing an increase. And that's it. So once you get past the increasing, so there are German short rows in the back. The back will sit a little higher than the front, and I do love that. And you've got to accommodate, as you increase stitches, you're going to increase those stitches. As you can see, this stocking knit will begin to grow as you begin to increase stitches. But the basic pattern will stay the same. So once you get all your stitches on and you put your sleeve stitches on a holder, you're working in the round, and it's a 4-row repeat, and 2 of those rounds are knit, just plain knitting. You pick up the stitches, you'll have a couple of stitches that you'll increase under the arm, and then a very similar situation. And look at this lovely full sleeve. And you get this little puffy sleeve because you're going to do a pretty rapid decrease as soon as you get to the rib. And it's a nice long rib. And the body's going to have a nice long rib as well. I have to try this on and just decide how much longer I want this to go. Make sure I'm quite sure I have enough yarn, but I want to be sure before I put up the other sleeve on and do the rib as to how much more of this. Now this is supposed to be a fairly cropped sweater. You know me, I can't really pull off a cropped that easily, but I am going to make it fairly short, and I am going to make the rib long. I think it's going to look beautiful with off-white, white jeans, gray, dress it up, and also dress it down. So I am going to take it off the mannequin so I can get you a little bit of a closer look at this pattern. Here we go. Can you see those beautiful eyelets and how they work all the way down the sleeve. Beautiful color. Now, Knitting for Olive has lots of different colors, lots of different shades, but mostly in very muted tones. I think that's part of their aesthetic, is to have all these beautiful soft tones. And I'm also looking forward to trying some of their other yarns. But again, I didn't even use the Knitting for Olive Merino. I used the Moondrake. I think I also mentioned in the last episode that they had a knitting book out, and I haven't really been buying a lot of knitting books. I have a lot, as you can see behind me. I have tubs and tubs of patterns, and now I use Knit Companion, so a lot of my patterns are stored either in Ravelry or Knit Companion, and I seldom will pick up another book unless I'm really enamored with it. And I thought about this Knitting for Olive book for a while. I thought it was going to have a lot of baby and children's knits in it, but it actually doesn't. So this is the book. I got it on Amazon. If you just want a book that is beautiful to look at, the photography is beautiful. The beginning of the book, they basically tell you their story, how they started. Mom, Pernilla, was knitting for her daughter's grandchildren and doing a lot of baby knits, and every time her daughter went out with the baby, somebody would say, oh my goodness, that is absolutely beautiful. Where did you get the pattern? She, well, my mother knitted it. Well, does she have the pattern? Well, no, my mother is not a pattern writer. So I think popular demand from their friends and family, and then thinking about how would they take it from just mom's creativity into a pattern, prompted them to sit down together. And so the mother, Pernilla, is the pattern designer, she's the writer, and the daughter opened up the web store and helped them figure out how to edit the patterns, how to size the patterns and draft the patterns. And now you can buy their patterns online. They have their book out, but the aesthetic is just beautiful. It's soft, as you can see, soft, a lot with mohair, but carrying one strand of mohair maybe with a merino, or carrying multiple strands of mohair. And again, you don't have to use their yarn, or you can try it. So I haven't really knit anything. Actually, this Fern pattern is not in this book, but there are a couple of patterns in here that I do want to make. And if you haven't seen that episode of Fruity Knitting, you'll get a feel for who the mother and daughter are behind Knitting for Olive. Okay, so I'm still talking about the sweet part of the bittersweet. So we went to the Virgin Islands. I've done some knitting. We had Easter. And then I had a surprise before we left as well. So I think with the holidays and with Christmas, I really just hadn't been on Ravelry. I was trying to work on some of my holiday preparations and some of the gifts that I made. And so I really hadn't been into my Ravelry account. And so it was right before we were getting ready to leave for the Virgin Islands that I saw I actually had a message in my Ravelry account that I hadn't read. So I clicked on that message. Now I'm just going to back up a step before I tell you the story about the message. My cousin Catherine and I, we video chat every so many weeks, and we talk about what we're knitting and what we want to knit. And we were saying, you know, shawl knitting is tricky. I don't always wear all my shawls. I tend to give a lot of my shawls away. You know, I donated my MCAL, the Stephen West knit along, that beautiful shawl that I made. I donated that to our medical center for a fundraiser, and I wasn't really thinking about knitting another shawl. And my sister, my cousin was in the same, thinking the same way. However, we had both seen on Instagram the Natasha Hornsby Artus, A-R-T-U-S, I'll include a photo, shawl pattern. It's mosaic knitting, and we both have enjoyed mosaic knitting, and we both were thinking, well, maybe we'll make an exception and make another shawl, and maybe we'll work on that. So back to my surprise. I open up this Ravelry message, and there's a lovely message from Carolyn. And Carolyn is, her Instagram name is WoollyNeedle. And Carolyn was doing acts of kindness. And she decided, because she enjoyed my podcast, to give me, as a gift, the artist pattern. So I have the artist pattern. Thank you so much, Carolyn. I love it. Carolyn is friends with Natasha Hornsby, and I've decided to join the Woolly Thistle Cal. So they're doing a knit along, a shawl knit along. I think the cast on was on March 29th. I don't even have the yarn yet. I'm just sort of trying to get back into my groove, my creative groove, going off Saturday, going to go off island. I'm going to go to my local yarn shop and look for some yarn. And Carolyn could just envision me making that in maybe blues and greens. And that's exactly what I was thinking. So that all was just such a wonderful surprise, how my cousin and I were talking about the pattern. And then sure enough, in my Ravelry account, there's this wonderful gift. So I will start including my progress when I buy the yarn, my progress, and let you know more details about that Cal too in the show notes. So another wonderful, sweet surprise. I think the last time we spoke, I also was working on the Phosphine, and I'm going to include a photo of that. I thought I would have that finished. I mean, I'm really close. All I have to do is finish the sleeves and finish the rib, but again, we went away, and then when we came back, I just didn't get to it. So I am going to get back to work on that, and hopefully I'll have that completed, and hopefully I'll have the Fern completed. So the other things that I worked on while we were away was, of course, socks. And I used my sweet little dumpling bag. And if you haven't made the dumpling bag, just a reminder what a cute little project bag this would be for us. This is a petite knit pattern. I did line it, and I put a little pocket inside it. I'll reference the episode where I went into this, but I used this for my socks. So while we were away, I made this pair for myself, and I had a little bit of this yarn left over, and I knew I was going to have some left over, so I brought some off-white with me, and I brought a light brown, and I just decided to see what would happen if I just played without really a pattern. So, you know, this is a great way for us to use our sock yarn or our fingering weight yarn, all those little ends and bits and pieces. So I had a little bit of brown, I had a little bit of white, I had some of that left over from my socks. I used that. I did every other stitch with the leftover yarn from this sock and with the white, and just made that pretty. And I will remind you, because I forgot myself, I should have gone up a needle size when I did that. It's a little snug, but you know what? It's on the ankle, so it's okay. I can still get it on my foot. I used the brown for the heel. So that was just a fun little knit, and I've got, you know, the other one. Now I just have to look and see what I did on the first one and try to replicate it on the second one. So I did get a chance to work on some socks, and I always usually have socks going. So, okay. The other thing I talked about in my last episode was a book that I had purchased for my husband and I to read. Every year, we try to add another book to our self-improvement goals, and this particular book I found out about because I had seen an episode of Oprah and Arthur Brooks, and they co-wrote this book called Build the Life You Want, The Art and Science of Getting Happier. And I enjoyed the first episode so much that I decided to buy the book. I figured my husband and I would, you know, read a chapter here and there, and as you can see, I'm just about to finish it. We took our time. We went through this book slowly. They talk about the 4 pillars that they believe will lead to a happier life. And so the 4 pillars, let's see if I can remember now, family, friends, purpose, and faith. And I've enjoyed it. I haven't even watched the rest of the episodes, but I have enjoyed the book. I'm taking my time. My husband and I just got to the last chapter, which is faith. And, you know, they're not trying to push their religious beliefs on us, but they're talking about faith as in, you know, what is it that you believe in that helps motivate you every day? Is it the universe? Is it spirit? Is it whatever that is? And they're not really specifically talking about any particular religion. So the whole book is really almost like a textbook, but easy enough to read that you don't have to read it. It doesn't read like a novel. You could pick it up, a couple of weeks could go by, you could pick it up again and just pick up where you left off. And I want to thank those of you who gave me some ideas for some other books to add to my reading list. I haven't done a whole lot of reading, but I will update you on what I have been reading once I get back into it. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We're back home. We're enjoying being home. It's always great to be away, but it's always good to be home. And had a wonderful Easter with my family. And right now we're just riding out the storm. We're going to go off island on a Saturday, do a little grocery shopping, And I think when we get back, we'll probably be able to get outside, rake up some of the branches that are down, clean up our garden beds, start thinking about a little spring planting. And I thank you so much for waiting for me to get back to you. I know it's been a stretch, but I did miss you, and I'm looking forward to, you know, getting back to knitting with you and talking about knitting with you and hearing from you and hearing how your winter went. So if you knew my uncle, or if you are interested and you would like to stay for the next part of this video, it's just going to be a photo montage of some pictures from my uncle from when he was a young man. And he, you know, he loved to dance, he loved to sing, he liked to go to the theater, he loved to dine and to eat out, and he was a big influence in our lives. And so I will leave you with my uncle and his photos, and the theme of his life, and really the theme of his last several birthday parties was, "These are the best of times."